The Beer Hall Putsch, a story of ambition, bluff, and failure. On the evening of November 8, 1923, Adolf Hitler's most audacious attempt to seize power was set into motion. The place was the Burger Bräukeller, a beer hall in Munich, Bavaria, where over 3,000 people had gathered to hear a speech from Gustav von Kahr, the leader of the Bavarian government. It was a time of political unrest in Germany, and the atmosphere was tense. The hall was filled with Bavarian citizens enjoying their beer, seated at long wooden tables. Suddenly, the mood shifted as Hitler and his stormtroopers, the SA, surrounded the building. Hitler, with a revolver in hand, barged into the hall, demanding attention. To capture the crowd's focus, he fired a shot into the ceiling. The noise startled the crowd, and Kahr, who was speaking at the time, paused in confusion. Hitler, with his trusted allies, including his bodyguard Ulrich Graf, made his way to the stage. As they approached, a police major tried to stop them, but Hitler, wielding his pistol, pushed past him. Kahr, now visibly pale, stepped away from the podium, and Hitler seized the opportunity to announce that a national revolution had begun. He boldly declared that the Bavarian and German governments had been overthrown, that police and military forces had been mobilized under the swastika banner, and that a new national government had been formed. None of this was true, but in the chaos of the moment, few questioned him. Hitler ordered Kahr, von Lossow, the Bavarian army chief, and Seisser, the Bavarian police chief, to accompany him into a private room. Surrounded by armed stormtroopers, the three men were now effectively Hitler's prisoners. The crowd, initially bewildered, began to grow restless. The situation was tense, and Hitler's bluster started to wear thin. Some in the crowd even shouted at the police to act, but they did nothing. It was clear that Hitler's hold on the situation was tenuous. One of Hitler's men, Hermann Goering, stepped up to calm the crowd. He reassured them that the new government was in control and told them not to worry. "You've got your beer." It was a strange moment of calm, in the midst of political upheaval. The crowd, still uncertain, began to cheer, believing that they were part of a larger movement. Inside the side room, Hitler's negotiations with Kahr, Lossow, and Seisser were not going as planned. Despite Hitler's threats, the three men were not impressed by his promises of high office in the new government. Kahr, in particular, was unyielding. He defiantly told Hitler that he could either shoot him or leave him be, but he would not comply with Hitler's demands. Seisser also reproached Hitler for breaking his word about not staging a coup. In a desperate move, Hitler threatened to kill himself if he was not victorious by the next day. His determination was clear, but the three Bavarian leaders remained unmoved. Then, in a sudden turn of events, Hitler left the room and returned to the main hall. He mounted the podium again, this time announcing that Kahr, Lossow, and Seisser had joined the new government. The crowd erupted in cheers, believing that the revolution was a success. In reality, the three men were still in the side room, resisting Hitler's demands. At this critical moment, Hitler's luck seemed to change. General Erich Ludendorff, a famed World War I hero, appeared at the scene. Although Ludendorff was furious with Hitler for involving him in such an unexpected plan, his reputation helped sway the Bavarian leaders. Kahr, still hesitant, agreed to cooperate under the condition that he would serve as the king's deputy for Bavaria. With Ludendorff's presence lending credibility to his cause, Hitler led the Bavarian leaders back to the stage, where they swore loyalty to the new government. The crowd went wild, and Hitler basked in the moment of triumph. He spoke passionately about his vision for a new Germany, one free from the disgrace of the Treaty of Versailles and the Weimar Republic. However, the victory was short-lived. As the evening progressed, cracks began to appear. Kahr, Lossow, and Seisser slipped away from the beer hall, returning to their positions of power and effectively abandoning Hitler's coup. Meanwhile, Hitler and Ludendorff traveled to the army ministry to regroup, only to find that the military forces loyal to the government were quickly mobilizing against them. Hitler had failed to secure key positions in Munich, including the police and telegraph offices, which meant that the government could still send orders to suppress the uprising. By dawn, Hitler's hopes of a revolution were fading. He had expected to find the city under his control, but instead, it was clear that his coup was falling apart. Regular army troops had begun to encircle the stormtroopers who had occupied the war ministry. Worse still, Hitler's own supporters had failed to occupy key centers of power. It became evident that the putsch was a disaster. Kahr had quickly acted to restore order after escaping the beer hall. He had ordered a proclamation posted throughout Munich, denouncing Hitler's actions and declaring the Nazi Party and its allies to be dissolved. By the time Hitler returned to the Bürgerbräukeller, the revolution he had so confidently anticipated was already over. In the days that followed, Hitler's failed putsch became a defining moment in his rise to power. Though the coup had failed, it brought him national attention and marked the beginning of a long journey toward dictatorship. The Beer Hall Putsch was an ambitious, chaotic, and ultimately tragic moment in German history, one that showed both Hitler's determination and his willingness to gamble everything on a desperate, violent move. Despite the putsch's failure, Hitler's resolve remained unbroken. Over the next decade, he would learn from his mistakes, refine his methods, and return with an even more dangerous plan for seizing power, one that would change the course of history.